Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. And as the Giants are underway with minicamp, some stuff coming out. Daniel Jones, the offense struggling a little bit today, but the defense, Wink Martindale, sending the blitzing, sending the house, and getting a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones personally. I think that's the best thing for Daniel Jones during practice right now is to face off against Wink Martindale's system. And kind of be uncomfortable, see what it's like to be uncomfortable during practice in a controlled setting where the mistakes don't matter. That way, during games, when he feels that same thing, he knows exactly how to get out of it. He knows exactly what to do, to alleviate that adversity. And ultimately, he needs that. I think that they've been treating him like a baby in practice the last couple of years. They need to put the pressure on him, get after him, put him under pressure constantly until he figures out how to escape, how to just take advantage of what the defense is giving him. And I think it ultimately will translate to the regular season. At least we hope so. But today's episode, we want to take a look at rookie 5th round linebacker Micah McFadden and what he's bringing to this defense. Now, Micah McFadden is a really interesting player out of Indiana. He reminds me a lot of Blake Martinez. We've spoken about him a little bit in the past. We wanted to give a little bit more in-depth details into what he's capable of doing, what he's bringing to this Giants defense, and why he could end up stealing some starting snaps alongside Blake Martinez in this linebacker core that seems to be rather weak. But Anthony, before we dive into Micah, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, and I think what you brought up there about Daniel Jones during minicamp, getting a taste of Wink Martindale's system is really important because I think we all remember the 2020 season. I believe it was week 16. It was a December game, late season game, Giants versus Ravens. Wink Martindale's defense just dominated the Giants. I mean, it was a horrible showing for the New York Giants in that game. Everybody offensively struggled, including Daniel Jones. He was under pressure constantly. I think that honestly is arguably the worst performance we've seen from the Giants offense in recent memory. That was a really bad one. So I think it's very important for Daniel Jones kind of going up against the defense that gave him the most trouble in his career to this point every single day in practice. He's practicing against the toughest defense that he's ever faced, or at least schematically, because if you watch what the Ravens did in that game in that week versus Daniel Jones and the Giants, I mean, that defense was really ripping apart the Giants offense schematically. There were some blitzes coming from all over the place. There was constant duress. I believe we even broke down Daniel Jones's performance of that game with Chris the Entertainer. After that game, we took a look at it. If some of you who've been here for a while remember that. And we were just astounded by how good Wink Martindale's defense was and how he was throwing in so many disguise coverages and such crazy blitz packages and how the Giants offensive line just couldn't handle it. So I think what you just mentioned there is we take a look at minicamp. This is kind of Daniel Jones's first opportunity to go against this defense once again. And he's going to be going up against this every day in practice for the rest of the season and so forth, hopefully, if he stays around that long. And I do think that's really important for Daniel Jones and his development, just going up against his toughest matchup from the past. But shifting over to that defensive side of the ball, I love what the Giants added in terms of talent in the middle rounds of this draft. And the guy that we're going to be talking about today, Micah McFadden, a perfect pair along Blake Martinez. And Blake Martinez, you got to keep in mind, he's coming off of an injury, might be a little slow out of the gate, might have some struggles early on. And his playing style is very necessary for the Giants defense now with Wink Martindale. And he's always been a very good player for the Giants. But it seems like they found the guy who can replicate that exact playing style. Now, I'm not saying Micah McFadden has the same talent level as Blake Martinez, but he's got the same playing style. And I think that's perfect because if you ever see Blake Martinez go down with another injury, God forbid, I think Micah McFadden's perfect to just step in and play that exact same role, or stand beside Blake Martinez and play the same role next to him. Then you kind of just have two double dosages of great linebacker play, or at least that perfect playing style that fits seamlessly right into Wink Martindale's defense.
Right. And, we all know Wink Martindale loves his aggressive football. We know he wants to get after the quarterback, send blitzers. Blake Martinez isn't known for his ability to be an aggressive blitzing linebacker, but he has similar frame and intangibles to Micah McFadden. But Micah McFadden has the added ability to get after the quarterback, and he has showed some pretty good versatility. Right off the bat, Joe Shane said about him, another guy with very good size, speed. He was a captain. He's athletic. I think he'll help us out. He can play inside, outside. He's a good blitzer as well. Another versatile piece. Something that I did notice about what the Giants did this past draft is they really allocated a lot of time and energy focusing on players who can fit multiple roles, right? You look at Wandale, ability to play running back, ability to play receiver. You look at, Dane Belton in the slot at safety. Just Darian Beavers, more of a linebacker, but has some coverage abilities. Now you have Micah McFadden, capable of blitzing, maybe can get a rotational outside linebacker, can also be in a middle linebacker role, can play the Mike. Pairing him with Blake Martinez would be very interesting. Blake isn't necessarily a good coverage guy either. A little bit better in zone. I would not trust him in man coverage. Micah McFadden is very similar. I would not trust him by any means in coverage. He is purely a run stopper. He is purely a guy who's going to get into the backfield quickly. So when you're looking at him, what is he really good at? He's physical as hell, right? The guy is, let's see, 6'1", 240 pounds. He seeks out contact. That is what he loves to do. He likes to find the ball carrier, and he likes to put them in the ground. So that is the type of players we like to see, and he has the intangible captaincy to go with it. He does have the ability to lead, and I think that is another variable the Giants did try to focus on this past draft. Charismatic leaders like Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal. This guy, I feel like Evan Neal's a little bit quieter, but he leads by example. Kayvon Thibodeau, very charismatic as a leader, definitely hypes up the guys around him. McFadden, a captain. I really think that he's going to be a really nice piece to this defense, at least situationally, to start his career. He'll probably, get involved in special teams, of course, as a 5th-round pick. But, there's 5th-round picks that have done a lot of good stuff, especially if they are scheme fits. And something I thought the Giants did this year that was really interesting was a lot of their draft picks were scheme specific, Anthony. When you're looking at Micah McFadden, he was extremely meant to fit a specific role, and that is being aggressive in Wink Martindale's defense. So do you think that the idea and the ideology of being more scheme specific with their draft strategy was a good move, or do you think that the strategy of kind of drafting the best player available and then building around them is a little bit more sufficient? I think it's interesting that we went this way.
I think it's really interesting that they went that way, but I think it's also interesting the way that the draft board fell for the Giants, because when you take a look at that first round, they drafted the best players available with Kayvon Thibodeau at number 5 and Evan Neal at number 7, but both of those guys just happened to be perfect scheme fits for the Giants and perfectly fill positions of needs. So I think the Giants got really lucky there. But, you read up on all the articles about Kayvon Thibodeau pre-draft and post-draft, and everyone's like, the dream fit for Kayvon Thibodeau is the New York Giants. He would just be perfect in Wink Martindale's blitz-heavy defense. This is a perfect scheme fit. This is who the Giants should take. And then that's who they took. So they got the perfect scheme fit. And some people believe that Kayvon Thibodeau should have been the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So they got the best player, arguably, in the draft. And then arguably the other best player in the draft, according to some other people on their draft boards, was Evan Neal, who also fits perfectly with what the Giants needed. And then I think in the later rounds, they're just finding those niche needs to get their coordinators on the right track. And I do think that's the right strategy. I think early on in the draft, usually you want to take the best player available, like they did with Thibodeau and Neal. You just get the best talents at premium positions of need. But later on in the draft, I think what you want to do is fill out those specific needs on your roster and really take a checklist from your offensive and defensive coordinator and just check things off, right? Because we talked about that recently with the tight end position, how Mike Kafka is probably going to love Daniel Bellinger because he's that tight end that can play that screen game and play in that Travis Kelce type role while also being a blocker and a short length receiver, right? Shallow receiver. So I feel like that's something that Mike Kafka wrote down. They were like, checked off. That's perfect. And then you take a look at what Wink Martindale might have written down. He might have written down, I need a blitzing linebacker, a linebacker that can scream through the A-gap and I can send him on third downs and trust him to get after the quarterback. Okay, check that one off. We got Micah McFadden right there. And I think that is the right strategy to work with, because you don't want to just have these coordinators run onto this team, sign a bunch of veteran free agents that they know from other regimes, right? Which is what we saw with James Betcher signing a bunch of washed up former Cardinals players. And we saw that with Jason Garrett signing up some washed up players that he knew from his time in Dallas. And we saw that all over this team, really, in multiple different facets. I mean, it kind of worked out in some aspects with Patrick Graham. That's how we landed Blake Martinez, because they had that connection. So sometimes that does work out, but that's good, talented players. But what I like is to see coordinators step in and kind of have the autonomy to say, these are the guys that we want in these later rounds of the draft because they're perfect scheme fits and we feel like we can develop them. Joe Shane, please, this is your grocery list. Go out there and get these guys for us. And that's what he went ahead and did. He checked off all those items on the grocery list and he got those scheme fits. Brian Dable needs a gadget guy who can play running back, receiver. All right, checked it off. We got Wan'Dale Robinson. And again, Wink Martindale needs a blitzing inside linebacker that can scream through the A-gap on third downs. Checked it off. They got Micah McFadden. I think that is the perfect draft strategy in those middle rounds of the draft. So that way, when your coordinators step onto the field on the sidelines for the first time and get out there coaching their schemes, they have the players in place to do the things that their scheme specifically asks for, and they can get it running as a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said, right? Like you said, in the past, we've tried to fill in the gaps with free agent signings. And Just kind of
Antoine
getting
Bethea,
guys.
anyone?
And oh God, please don't. I don't, I try to have a good day around here and you got to ruin it. I'm having a great day. I'm doing good. And you got to throw a name in like Antoine Bethea into the mix. Just the memories of the Curtis Rileys of the world. No Angle Riley. Like, come on. It's awful. It's all just spare me the pain. But I will say, older guys like James Betcher, those older defensive coordinator, not older in terms of age, but like previous defensive coordinators that we have had in the past, tried to supplement deficiencies with bringing guys that had familiarity with their system. And ultimately, a lot of those were cheap veterans. I like the idea of drafting guys who fit your system and then building on their strengths because you don't know exactly what their ceiling is yet. We knew what Antoine Bethea was. We knew what all those guys that they brought in to help, smooth over the transitions were, but we don't know what Micah McFadden or Dane Belton or any of these guys, what is their ceiling? We're not sure yet. We do know, however, they have some really great tangible traits and intangible traits. And Micah McFadden last year for Indiana was an absolute stud. 77 total tackles, 15.5 tackles for a loss. That number stands out like crazy. 6.5 sacks. He has 6 or more sacks in his past 2 seasons. And he also made the bowl game in 2019, 2020. So he has some experience in some big games, had 3 passes defended and forced a fumble as a senior last year. So he, played 4 years at the college level, big school in the Big Ten. This is a guy who's well-versed. He knows the game. I do really like how reactive he is. You'll see, we'll throw some clips into the video. Extremely reactive player. He's very quick to realize what is going on. There is a couple of negatives when it comes to his tangibles, and one of them is that he has very small, or not small arms, but his arm length is below average at 31.25 inches. That's in the 26th percentile. He's 6'1", so he's about average there. Weight 240, pretty good. Hand size 9 inches and 9.5 inches, so 53rd percentile, a little bit above average. His 40-yard dash is 4.63, above average there, way above average in his 20-yard shuttle. He's extremely quick, like I said, very quick at reacting, pretty decent awareness. He's not his speed isn't something that's going to like kind of jump off the page, jump off the film, but the way that he reacts and how quickly he gets to the ball carrier does. Like that's something that does, kind of jump off the page. But his change of direction is about average. He's not going to blow you away with this like very quick capabilities because he is a little bit of a heavier set guy. Vertical jump at 35 inches, 9'10" broad jump, extremely quick. Like I said, 3-cone, 6.88 seconds in the 3-cone drill. He's a guy that he's going to be able to react, get to the ball carrier and put them in the ground very, very quickly. When quarterbacks get out of the pocket, he's able to run after those guys and take them down. He missed a couple of tackles. He missed like 16 tackles last year. That's something he's going to have to work on because his arms are shorter. He does miss tackles because of that. So it's going to come down to kind of working on his form and getting that down so we can really extrapolate on his strengths, Anthony. But how do you think Micah McFadden on day one is going to impact this team? You think he's more of a situational guy? You think he's more of an early down run stopper? Or do you think he ends up stealing that LB2 spot away from Tate Crowder?
I think he can be the LB2 on this team because I think what the Giants are constructing with their roster, you're seeing a lot of young defensive backs that know how to play in the box, right? You're seeing that with Xavier McKinney, of course, but you're also seeing that with Dane Belton. You're seeing that with Julian Love. They've got a number of defensive backs and Aaron Robinson who can play in the box and be your cash linebacker, your money backer, in those dime packages and big nickel packages when you want to get as many defensive backs on the field as you can. And I think that's where the Giants are heading. I think they're going to have a lot of nickel and dime on the field, and they're going to have a lot of their safeties and defensive backs get into the box and play those coverage roles. And Tate Crowder is their coverage linebacker, but he's not the best coverage linebacker. He's really not that great in coverage anyway. I know that he's their most athletic guy, arguably, and he's who they want to play in that coverage role, but I don't think that's the best option for them. I think the best option is to find one of those defensive backs that knows how to tackle and play in the box and have them play as that coverage linebacker. Meanwhile, you can have on the early downs 2 run-stuffing linebackers like Blake Martinez and Micah McFadden, who both excel as run blockers, or run defenders rather, and they excel as pass rushers. They're both great at getting after the quarterback. Blake Martinez is great in his own right, and that's literally the specialty of Micah McFadden, is rushing the quarterback. So I think there's an avenue where he does get worked in very early on as LB2 alongside Blake Martinez. But primarily, I think what they're going to use Micah McFadden as early on in his career, of course, you'll probably see him on special teams and you'll see him getting some work there. But when you take a look defensively, he's probably going to be on the field for a lot of third downs, third and long situations where the Giants just need a pass rushing linebacker. They want to blitz on a third down, be really aggressive. We know Wink Martindale is going to run an extremely uber aggressive defense. They're going to blitz at the most wild times. It's going to be a third down when they should just be dropping back in coverage. And Wink Martindale is going to send the house, get a sack, push them out of field goal range, make them punt the ball. That's how he plays the game. And you love that mentality from a defensive coordinator. And the players that are going to help him do that are the really good pass rushers like Micah McFadden, who can be really creative, come out of nowhere from the A gap, scream through the hole, and get after the quarterback. That's what you want from Micah McFadden. So I think early on, he's going to be a specialist on defense. He's going to be used as a third down pass rusher, as a little surprise there, and rotated in as that pass rushing linebacker. But he's got some great ability as a run defender as well. So as he continues to just build on his game, I do think he steals the LB2 position away from Tate Crowder. I'm not super high on Tate Crowder's talents. I think that he's a good pick considering where he was drafted, and he's made some really solid plays, but he is wholly inconsistent. And I do think that coming out of college, Micah McFadden is a better prospect than Tate Crowder was. It's why he was drafted higher. And I do think he'll develop into a player that can be a solid number 2 linebacker on the Giants' currently constructed roster. And I don't think it'll take him that long to develop into that player and steal that position away.
Yeah, honestly, if we're being honest, I think that Darian Beavers is going to end up beating out Tate Crowder as well. I don't think Tate Crowder is that good of a player. I think that every now and then he has a decent play, but he's bad in coverage. He's not a good run stopper. He misses tackles. He's out of position. We just had no choice but for him to fill in for Blake Martinez last year after he went down against Atlanta. We didn't have anybody else. They were bringing in guys, Jalen Smith they brought in, Reggie Ragland. These guys were just veterans who didn't know the system at all. Tate Crowder at least had a year of experience under his belt. So I think that moving forward, I would entirely think that Darian Beavers and Micah McFadden have a pretty damn good chance at earning starting reps. Tate Crowder, that job is not his cemented yet. And I'm okay with that, by the way. I want that because I'm tired of giving out starting jobs. I say this all the time. Tired of giving out starting jobs to guys who really don't deserve them. I'm not saying Tate Crowder doesn't deserve it. What I'm saying is I don't think he's a starting level player. I think he's a good reserve backup player. I think having him as your first alternative behind Blake Martinez, totally fine. Should he be in Blake Martinez's role? Absolutely not. I think that Blake Martinez is really great at that second level, hovering back, collecting tackles. Micah McFadden next to him, being aggressive, blitzing, getting involved at the line of scrimmage. That's where I want to see Micah McFadden making plays. So I'm really curious to see if they really get him involved as a starter alongside Blake. They have similar measurables and stuff, but their play style is a little bit different in some areas. So very curious to see how they utilize Micah. Really interesting player. Definitely a scheme fit for Wink Martindale's system, guys. But I'd love to hear your opinions below on the YouTube comments about Micah, what you think his role is going to be, how you think he's going to make an impact. Really intriguing prospect here. And excited to see him and see what he can kind of accomplish at this next level. As a captain, I expect a little bit more from him in terms of work ethic. So hopefully he can accomplish a lot. But make sure to like and subscribe, as always, to the YouTube channel, my friends. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.